81. Lightning Step. Looking at those pure soul powers, the woman in red frowned. That's a bit of a waste. The woman in red glanced at Ye Tian, who was unconscious, and her eyes flickered slightly. With a swift grasp, the spiritual power permeating the air converged and coalesced into a single mass. Then the woman in red slapped Ye Tian, and all her soul power merged into Ye Tian's body. The woman in red closed her eyes, helping Ye Tian fuse with a vast soul power. The soul of a Saint Martial Realm cultivator is beyond Ye Tian's capacity to withstand. If she doesn't help, Ye Tian will be burst apart. With the help of the woman in red, Ye Tian's soul is constantly growing stronger. As for the soul, there are also different levels. Ordinary martial artists, although they can strengthen their souls as they break through their cultivation levels, are all stuck at the mortal realm stage. Above this, the soul is powerful and full of vitality, which is the spiritual realm. To become an alchemist, one must possess a spiritual soul. This is fundamental. Generally speaking, a person who has reached the great perfection of the spirit realm can fight against someone in the venerable martial realm. And because the soul is ethereal and intangible, the chances of winning are extremely high. Above the spirit realm lies the saint realm soul, which is truly wondrous, capable of independent existence and nearly indestructible. For example, that guy from before possessed a soul from the holy realm, allowing him to possess another body and live a second life. Almost every martial artist who breaks through to the Saint Martial Realm will have their soul transformed into a Saint Realm being. This can be considered a kind of benefit. However, breaking through to the Saint Martial Realm is extremely difficult, and ordinary martial artists rarely have the opportunity to do so. Leaving aside the Saint Martial Realm, the Sect Martial Realm alone has stopped many people. Above the Sect Martial Realm, there is an even stronger Venerable Martial Realm. Above the Venerable Martial Realm lies the Saintly Martial Realm. One step at a time, an extremely strict and imposing structure. As for the Divine Martial Realm, it is a legendary realm on the Divine Martial Continent, which has not been reached for 10,000 years. The most recent one was the one who shattered the void using his sword-drawing technique 10,000 years ago. Inside the cave, Ye Tian's soul continued to transform and grow stronger. If he weren't currently asleep, the mere transformation of his soul would have caused him unbearable pain. As the last wisp of soul power was absorbed, Ye Tian's soul burst into the spiritual realm with a boom. Don't underestimate the fact that he's only at the spirit realm. You should know that Ye Tian's soul was only at the early stage of the mortal realm before. Furthermore, the soul of this Saint Martial Realm cultivator had been consumed for a full 1,000 years, and was far less than 1/10 of its original essence. In the end, it was already quite remarkable that Ye Tian was able to break through several stages to enter the spirit realm. If it were Ye Tian himself, if he couldn't break through to the Saint Martial Realm in this lifetime, his soul would ultimately only remain at the peak of the mortal realm. As time passed, Ye Tian slowly awoke and immediately saw the woman in red. "What's wrong with me?" Ye Tian stood up and looked at the woman in red with some confusion. "I told you long ago not to cause trouble. If I hadn't woken up this time, you wouldn't be you." Ye Tian didn't understand what the other person meant by, "You are not you." But he knew that the other person must have saved him this time. "Thank you for saving me, senior." Ye Tian was extremely grateful. The woman in red shook her head and turned to look at the white bones on the ice bed. "He has a storage ring in his hand. Go and get it." Ye Tian's heart stirred. Storage rings are legendary items. They're said to allow you to carry things with you, which is incredibly convenient. However, he was a little hesitant to approach the skeleton, still somewhat shaken by what had happened before. "Don't worry, he's completely dead. x33xs.com." The woman in red seemed to know Ye Tian's apprehension and couldn't help but speak up. Only then did Ye Tian muster his courage and walk towards the skeleton. Then he took off the black ring and kept looking it over. "Is this one of those magical storage rings?" It's hard to imagine that such a small ring could have such magical power. "You know how to perform a blood oath ceremony, right?" The woman in red spoke helplessly. Ye Tian nodded, and then began to recognize the master with some excitement. Once he recognized the master, Ye Tian felt as if he saw a small house with a large space of several tens of square meters. Inside were many bottles and jars, as well as some scrolls and other items. On the very edge, there was a pile of glittering gold objects. What is that? Gold. Ye Tian didn't see anything else, but he saw the gold very clearly. He knew that, apart from silver, gold was the highest form of currency on the divine martial continent. 1 tael of gold is worth 10 taels of silver. Looking at that pile of gold, Ye Tian grinned from ear to ear. We're rich. We're really rich. Looking at Ye Tian's appearance, the woman in red cursed him inwardly for being spineless. Then he spoke calmly. Take the contents out and see if there's anything useful inside. Ye Tian was taken aback and reluctantly took out the contents of his storage ring. All sorts of bottles and jars, scrolls, and even that pile of gold were taken out. It must be said that Ye Tian still trusted the woman in red. All right, put away those worldly things. Seeing Ye Tian reluctantly take out those gold coins, the woman in red was speechless. If you don't want it yourself, why make such a fuss? Shaking her head, the woman in red looked at the bottles and jars and found that they were all pills. Yuanli Dan, Chongshin Genti Dan, Guban Dan, Yonghun Dan, etc. There are no fewer than dozens of kinds of elixirs here, which is worthy of a Saint Martial Realm expert's collection. The woman in red looked at Ye Tian Dao. These elixirs are still well preserved even after 1,000 years. You may use them as appropriate in the future. Real. Ye Tian was somewhat skeptical. How could something still be useful after 1,000 years? It must be incredibly powerful. Anything placed in a storage ring will remain useful even after 10,000 years, as long as the storage ring is not destroyed. The woman in red held her head high. Then he scanned the scrolls. Most of them are cultivation techniques, but there are also some martial arts skills. The woman in red's eyes lit up when she saw a scroll. With a wave of his hand, the scroll appeared in his palm. Lightning Step. The woman in red looked at the names on the scroll with interest. Upon opening it, the woman in red's eyes flickered slightly. Take this. This movement technique will be useful to you. Practice it diligently. Ye Tian was counting the medicine bottles when he heard the woman in red's words and quickly looked up. When a scroll flew towards him, he instinctively caught it. Lightning Step. Looking at the handwriting above, Ye Tian became somewhat interested. If the other party says it's useful to me, then it must be something extraordinary. Ye Tian eagerly opened the app and began to examine it. Lightning Step. No rank, draws lightning into the body, moves like thunder, goes like lightning. As Ye Tian watched, he was horrified. This lightning step actually requires the connection of lightning. Furthermore, because it is a martial skill without a rank, the more lightning it draws in, the faster it becomes. Ye Tian then remembered the lightning outside, and a thought struck him. Could it be that those lightning bolts were absorbed by this guy in the past? Yes, very likely. With such powerful martial arts techniques at their disposal, it's impossible that the opponent wouldn't practice them. But now, it's all benefited me, which is quite an unexpected surprise. Alright, everything that comes into view is this lightning bolt, the rest is trash. After the woman in red finished speaking, she went to the ice bed. He reached out and patted the door, then nodded. This stuff is good. You provided the masterpiece Asura War God, by the master Lu Deizai, starting by devouring the Empress's essence and blood. 82. Grab it and swallow it. This stuff is good. The woman in red patted the ice bed and said. Ye Tian, on the other hand, didn't seem to care. It's just a very cold bed, and it's not comfortable to sleep on. Ignorant and ill-informed. The woman in red slightly raised the corners of her mouth, then looked at the ice bed in front of her, as if she had seen the core of it. Within this ice bed, there is a flame, and it is an ice attribute flame. Water and fire coexist, which is quite rare. What? Ye Tian was taken aback. There was also a flame inside the ice bed. Knowing that Ye Tian didn't believe her, the woman in red gently touched her hand. The next moment, the entire ice bed exploded, and a cluster of burning blue flames stood in the void. Azure ice flame. The woman in red whispered, "Is this the flame that combines water and fire?" Ye Tian stared curiously at the dark blue ice flames. "That's right, this is the azure ice flame, one of the strange flames of heaven and earth." "What's the use of this?" Ye Tian wasn't curious about anything else, but he was curious about the use of this dark blue ice flame. "There are many benefits." The woman in red smiled and continued. "For example, body tempering can make the physical body stronger." "That's all." Ye Tian was somewhat disappointed. Having already attained the body of an Asura, the azure ice flames were not that important to him. Don't underestimate it. The body tempering of the azure ice flame is all-encompassing. For example, your own potential can also be improved. What? Ye Tian was startled. x33xs.com. Enhancing potential? This is the first time I've ever heard of that. Because of the interaction between water and fire, the azure ice flame can expand your Dantian space, allowing it to hold more Yuan energy. You should know what this means. How could Ye Tian not know? Expanding the Dantian is equivalent to being able to accommodate more primordial energy, making the power provided by that primordial energy even stronger. Of course, correspondingly, breakthroughs will become more difficult, and accumulation will take longer. But compared to the benefits after the transformation, it's nothing at all. Furthermore, after tempering the body with this azure ice flame, one's meridians will also widen, making the output of Yuan energy smoother. It's like comparing a small stream to a large river. It's clear which one carries more water. Most importantly, with smoother output, the frequency of using martial arts techniques increases, and the techniques become more powerful. While others are still gathering their strength, you have already made your move. It can be said that such benefits are truly immense. Ye Tian licked his lips, feeling a surge of excitement. I never expected to reap such a great harvest this time, including a heaven-defying rare fire. The woman in red certainly doesn't need it, so in the end, she'll be the one who benefits. Another point is that you can use the azure ice flame to fight your enemies. If you mix a little bit of it into your attacks, you should know the consequences. Ye Tian's face flushed red, and his gaze toward the azure ice flames became even more intense. He couldn't wait to subdue the azure ice flame. The benefits were too numerous and too great. However, if you want to subdue this azure ice flame, you'll have to suffer a bit. If you fail, you'll end up being killed by the azure ice flame, and then everything will be for nothing. Ye Tian's expression turned serious. The woman in red didn't speak, she just looked at Ye Tian, leaving everything to his own choice. She wouldn't interfere in the slightest. After a long while, Ye Tian nodded sharply. Where in the world can you find a good deal that allows you to take a gamble, have the ability, and not suffer? For Ye Tian, as long as he can become stronger, he doesn't care how much hardship he has to endure. You have a bottle of vein protection pills in your storage ring. Swallow them directly. They might save your life. Ye Tian quickly took out the meridian protection pill, poured one out, and placed it in his hand. This is a 5th-grade elixir that can protect your heart meridian. The woman in red said dismissively. Ye Tian nodded and swallowed the meridian protection pill directly. In an instant, the vein protection pill turned into frost and covered Ye Tian's heart meridian. What's next? Looking at the woman in red, Ye Tian's expression turned solemn. Grab it and swallow it. Ye Tian's pupils contracted, a hint of fear in his eyes. To swallow flames, that takes immense courage. For a moment, Ye Tian stood silently in place, caught in a battle between his conscience and his inner demons. The woman in red did not disturb him, leaving it to Ye Tian's own choice. As the other party said, in this world, how can you gain strength without enduring hardship? Not to mention the hardships, some things even require you to work your butt off. As time passed, Ye Tian came to his senses, looked at the woman in red, and smiled brightly. The woman in red was taken aback, not expecting Ye Tian to actually laugh. "Senior, could you please do me a favor?" The woman in red hesitated for a moment, but finally nodded. "If I die, please take care of my sister." The woman in red seemed surprised that Ye Tian had asked her for help because of her sister. As she watched Ye Tian's retreating figure, the woman in red's eyes held a different look for the first time. Meanwhile, Ye Tian arrived in front of the azure ice flame. In an instant, I felt two completely opposite forces, cold and heat, sweeping over me. A shiver ran through Ye Tian. He felt both heat and cold. Sweat beaded on my forehead, but my teeth chattered from the cold. Suddenly, Ye Tian's eyes flashed with a deathly intent, and he stretched out his right hand to grab at the dark blue ice flame. In an instant, both scorching heat and freezing cold assaulted him, causing Ye Tian to roar in pain. "Ah! It's so hot. It's so cold." Holding the dark blue ice flame, Ye Tian remained motionless for a long time, roaring incessantly. At a certain moment, the woman in red gave a soft shout. "Swallow it quickly, or it will be too late once the effects of the vein-protecting pill wear off." Ye Tian snapped out of his daze, gritted his teeth, and stared at the azure ice flames with bloodshot eyes. Then, with lightning speed, he grabbed the azure ice flame and swallowed it in one gulp. Instantly, the forces of cold and heat violently ravaged Ye Tian's body, causing blue flames to erupt from his body. Blood flowed freely, cracks appeared in the flesh, and the flesh was charred and emitting blue smoke. A meaty smell filled the air, and the woman in red looked solemn. She could see that the dark blue ice flames within Ye Tian's body were frantically destroying his physical form. Ye Tian himself kept driving the other party into his dantian. Only when the azure ice flames enter the dantian can the opponent be considered refined. Above Ye Tian's heart meridian, the frost was constantly evaporating, but soon more frost would appear, tightly protecting Ye Tian's heart meridian. Ye Tian roared and shouted, his face alternating between hot and cold, his complexion displaying both blue and red hues. His clothes were completely destroyed, and he lay naked on the ground, facing the torment of the ghostly blue flames. Ye Tian's consciousness gradually became blurred. Once it completely disappeared, even with the protective pill still in his body, he would die. Just then, the woman in red gave a soft shout. "Wake up! Have you forgotten your sister? Protect your own sister yourself. Don't even think about asking me for help. If such a small flame can make you wish you were dead, how will you face your enemies in the future?" Upon hearing this, Ye Tian suddenly regained his senses. "Younger sister." With a murmur, an incredibly powerful belief burst forth from the depths of Ye Tian's heart. "Little sister, your brother will always protect you, ah. You provided the masterpiece Asura War God, by the master Lu Deizai, starting by devouring the Empress's essence and blood. 83. Refining successful. Little sister, your brother will always protect you, ah." With a loud roar, Ye Tian suddenly stood up, sat cross-legged on the ground, and unleashed powerful Yuan energy. Even his bloodline erupted, and a phantom of Asura appeared within his body. Upon seeing this, the woman in red slightly raised the corners of her mouth, revealing a captivating smile that vanished in an instant. Ye Tian's Asura bloodline erupted, and the azure ice flame seemed to sense the threat, launching a frenzied counterattack. Undying Asura technique, suppress it. Ye Tian frantically activated the Undying Asura technique until it reached its limit. When the Undying Asura technique reached its limit, a figure appeared behind Ye Tian. It was the Asura ancestor. The moment the Asura ancestor appeared, the azure ice flames within Ye Tian's body seemed to sense an even greater threat and fearfully hid deep within. Ye Tian sensed that the azure ice flames were becoming frightened, and his expression turned strange. But without thinking too much about it, he directly drove the opponent towards his dantian. Once the opponent enters your dantian, they will be completely subdued. Fortunately, it was only a 1,000-year-old azure ice flame. Otherwise, even a first-order Asura ancestral body would have difficulty suppressing it. The woman in red whispered, feeling a sense of relief. The reason the woman in red agreed to let Ye Tian refine the azure ice flame was largely because Ye Tian possessed the Asura bloodline, which could trigger the descent of the Asura ancestral body. With the existence of the Asura ancestor, even the strongest azure ice flame can be suppressed. At this moment, the azure ice flames were not far from Ye Tian's dantian. With just a little more effort, the azure ice flames would enter his dantian. But at that moment, the azure ice flame seemed to know that it was about to lose its freedom, and it unleashed an even more powerful force. The forces of intense heat and extreme cold swept over Ye Tian, leaving his heart meridian riddled with holes even with the help of the meridian protecting pill. The woman in red's expression changed, and she suddenly took out a meridian protecting pill from Ye Tian's storage ring, flicked it with her finger, and helped Ye Tian take it. With the help of the vein protection pill, Ye Tian's heart meridians felt much better and were no longer riddled with holes. With the presence of Asura power, it is gradually recovering. After its counterattack, the azure ice flame seemed to have exhausted its strength and was driven into Ye Tian's dantian. Ye Tian's expression softened and gradually returned to calm. After the azure ice flames entered his dantian, the primordial energy of heaven and earth swept in and poured into Ye Tian. Finally, it transformed into drops of yuan energy and entered Ye Tian's dantian, causing Ye Tian's aura to surge continuously. Time passed quickly, and half a day went by in the blink of an eye. Ye Tian's aura suddenly soared to a peak, and with a boom, Ye Tian broke through to the mid-stage of the true martial realm. Most importantly, this is just the beginning, not the end. There is also a continuous flow of primordial energy gathering between heaven and earth, which transforms into primordial power and enters the dantian. Ye Tian's cultivation level was also soaring, and his own power was also increasing dramatically. Finally, after everything calmed down, Ye Tian finally settled down. His cultivation level was at the peak of the true martial realm, just one step away from the spirit martial realm. Although this was extremely dangerous, the gains were enormous. Putting everything else aside, just considering the breakthrough in realm, it saved at least several months of time. After all, accumulating elemental power is not something that can be done overnight. It requires a lot of time. Furthermore, after refining the azure ice flame, his strength increased, making the gains even greater. When Ye Tian opened his eyes, he felt that the whole world was different. To be precise, he himself felt a sense of closeness to the world. Ye Tian was somewhat bewildered, not knowing why he had this strange feeling. The woman in red then spoke. "Now that you're all better, put on your clothes." Ye Tian then came to his senses and stood up somewhat awkwardly. This was the second time he'd been naked in front of this person. It would be a lie to say he wasn't embarrassed. 33novel.com. Soon, Ye Tian was dressed neatly, looking energetic and refreshed. At this moment, he could feel the surging power within his body. Just the yuan energy alone provided him with no less than 200 nyads of strength. With the added benefit of his physical body, his power directly reached the level of 600 oxen. 600 oxen, placed in the spirit martial realm, are even more powerful than those in the mid-stage of the spirit martial realm. An ordinary mid-stage spirit martial realm cultivator possesses the strength of 500 oxen. However, Ye Tian frowned, as the increase in power was a bit too small. It should be noted that he possessed the strength of no less than 400 oxen at the early stage of the true martial realm. However, at the peak of the true martial realm, there are only 600 oxen. In other words, breaking through several minor realms in succession only increased the strength of 200 oxen. Every realm has its limits. It cannot be increased indefinitely. Once you reach a certain peak, no matter how many breakthroughs you make, your power will not increase. The woman in red seemed to sense Ye Tian's confusion and spoke indifferently. Ye Tian thought for a moment and nodded slightly. Indeed, he was considered to be at the heaven-defying true martial realm. Which other true martial realm cultivator could possess such power? Don't rush if you're willing, you can definitely break this limit. The woman in red smiled slightly. This smile left Ye Tian somewhat stunned. There was no way around it. A smile that could charm 100 men was no more captivating than this. The woman in red's smile faded, and Ye Tian blinked before coming to his senses. Now that you possess the Azure Ice Flame, it's a great opportunity to break through your limits. How so? Ye Tian looked at the other person with curiosity. I told you before that the Azure Ice Flame can enhance potential. As long as you can withstand the flames of the Azure Ice Flame and allow your Dantian to undergo a transformation, you can break through this limit. Ye Tian was taken aback, only then remembering the potential the other party had mentioned earlier. Then what should we do? Ye Tian was somewhat excited, eager to break through his own limits immediately. Unleash the full power of the Azure Ice Flames and let them burn throughout your Dantian until you undergo a transformation. Upon hearing this, Ye Tian immediately began. In an instant, a powerful force erupted from the Azure Ice Flames in his Dantian, with two completely different flames, one scorching and the other frigid, burning fiercely. Ah! Instantly, Ye Tian felt pain. Even after refining the Azure Ice Flame, the pain will still be felt. However, in order to improve his own potential, Ye Tian gritted his teeth and persevered. As time passed, a cracking sound came from Ye Tian's Dantian, as if some kind of constraint was being broken, and the space in his Dantian continued to expand. Finally, when everything calmed down, Ye Tian's Dantian had expanded by a full 2/3. His cultivation level declined at an incredible speed. Finally, it stopped at the early stage of the true martial realm. In other words, Ye Tian's current realm is only the early stage of true martial realm, but his strength still remains at 600 oxen. Ye Tian did not open his eyes. He was absorbing the vital energy between heaven and earth. Once the vital energy enters the body, it is refined in the blink of an eye, turning into vital energy that drips into the Dantian. This speed is more than twice as fast as before. Even Ye Tian himself was shocked and greatly excited. However, breaking through to the mid-stage of the true martial realm is quite difficult. There's no way around it. The Dantian space is too vast, and it can't be achieved overnight. This is also a drawback, as it makes the accumulation process more time-consuming. You provided the masterpiece Asura War God by the master Lu Daozai, starting by devouring the Empress's essence and blood. 84. Mu Sheng's admonition. Ye Tian finished his practice and carefully sensed his own power. I discovered that in just a short while, my strength had indeed increased, though not by much, only by less than 2 or 3 oxen. But it did increase, which means that I have broken through my limits and have the capital to continue to improve my strength. Alright, in the future, every time you break through a new realm, do it this way, and your potential will become stronger and stronger. After the woman in red finished speaking, she vanished in a flash. She can't stay outside forever. She needs to recover as well. Ye Tian then stood up and looked around the entire cave. This was a serendipitous opportunity for him, from which he gained a great deal and laid the foundation for his future strength. Upon reaching the pile of silver, Ye Tian immediately collected it and placed it into his storage ring. His eyes were full of smiles. He had made a fortune this time. Wealth and power combined. I'd be laughing in my sleep. Ye Tian took out the lightning step technique and began to study it. This movement technique will be very helpful to me. I must master it as soon as possible. 33novel.com. Lightning. Upon arriving outside the cave, Ye Tian frowned slightly as he looked at the lightning above. The power of lightning was undoubtedly terrifying. Even Ye Tian felt a sense of dread. One wrong move and it could be deadly. However, in order to cultivate the lightning step, one must allow lightning to enter the body. With a resolute look on his face, Ye Tian resolutely stepped out of the cave, preparing to receive the lightning into his body. The instant Ye Tian stepped out of the cave, the lightning in the void seemed to sense it and swept towards him. Ye Tian did not dodge, but instead activated the lightning step technique within his body, preparing to receive the baptism of lightning. With a loud bang, a bolt of lightning struck Ye Tian's body and was absorbed by him. The lightning step technique was activated at full speed, refining lightning for his own use. In an instant, Ye Tian was covered in arcs of electricity, his hair stood on end, and some parts of his body became charred black. Pain appeared on Ye Tian's face as he gritted his teeth and continued to refine the lightning within his body. After a long while, a voice came from inside Ye Tian's body, and lightning flashed beneath his feet. The refining of lightning was successful. The first step has been taken successfully. Ye Tian also felt that he had some connection with the lightning above, and those lightning bolts looked quite cute. It's a strange feeling, but that's just how it is. Ye Tian, who has refined lightning, can be considered a member of the lightning family. When the lightning step is mastered, one can transform into lightning, achieving incredible speed. Ye Tian took a step and moved extremely fast, arriving inside the cave in the blink of an eye. This time was less than a breath. It has to be said that lightning step is truly overpowered and incredibly strong. Ye Tian was able to successfully refine the lightning because he was able to endure hardship and also had the help of the Asura power. If it was someone else, they probably wouldn't have been able to hold on and would have been killed by lightning. With the lightning step ability, Ye Tian's attacks will be even more powerful. The soul slash skill can also be enhanced, making it easier to kill opponents. Not enough. Ye Tian collapsed to the ground, his yuan energy completely depleted. While the lightning step is powerful, it consumes a lot of yuan energy. With Ye Tian's yuan power, he could only unleash it once before his yuan power was depleted. It seems that this can only be used as a trump card, and it cannot be used at full strength even once. After successfully completing his cultivation, Ye Tian did not leave. He planned to absorb more lightning to make himself even faster. The lightning here can at least bring one's lightning step to near completion. At that time, my speed will be even more incredible. And so, Ye Tian continued to go in and out, refining the lightning. Just as Ye Tian was practicing the lightning step, Mu Sheng arrived at the Blood Sea sect. The leader of the Blood Sea sect summoned Mu Sheng and, upon learning that the Cloud Sword sect had become weak, immediately organized a force to take action against it. Mu Sheng, on the other hand, rightfully stayed at the Blood Sea sect and became an outer sect elder. The status hasn't changed, only the location and environment have changed. However, even after becoming an elder of the Blood Sea sect, Mu Sheng still had a hard time, often suffering from the sect's disdain and ridicule. There's nothing we can do. Everyone knows this guy betrayed the Asura Sword sect. It's hard for anyone to like a traitor like that. If it weren't for saving face, the Blood Sea sect would never have kept Mu Sheng. Furthermore, Mu Sheng's understanding of the Chu Yun Sword sect might be useful in the future. On this day, Mu Sheng found an elder of the Blood Sea sect. He was also the elder who led the attack on the Asura Sword sect, Elder Kuhai. Elder Kuhai, be extremely careful of one person when attacking the Chu Yun Sword sect. Who? Elder Kuhai smiled and looked at Mu Sheng, his eyes filled with amusement. Ye Tian. This name sounds familiar. Elder Kuhai was taken aback and frowned. Yi Luo's son is also a little bastard that the Lin family wants to kill. Oh, it was him. Elder Kuhai suddenly realized. Then it dawned on him that Yi Luo did indeed have a son named Ye Tian. What, is this guy really that good? Elder Kuhai asked in confusion upon seeing Mu Sheng's solemn warning. Although this guy is only at the Gathering Yuan realm, he is incredibly strange. He was even able to withstand the attack of Hall Master Lin Ran. Thinking of Ye Tian back then, Mu Sheng felt a sense of fear. Elder Kuhai was taken aback, then laughed. How strong can a little kid be? Elder Kuhai didn't take it seriously. Seeing that the other party didn't seem to care, Mu Sheng opened his mouth but didn't continue to persuade him. Some things can only be believed by the other person after they have experienced them. Elder Kuhai, may I ask where Elder Yuanshan is? Mu Sheng thought of Lin Yuanshan. If Lin Yuanshan knew about Ye Tian's strange abilities, he might take action to eliminate this threat. Elder Yuanshan took his son Lin Mu to the Central Plains. Central China. Mu Sheng was startled. The Central Continent, the heart of the divine martial continent, is teeming with powerful individuals and numerous formidable sects. Elder Yuan Shan has a good son. He broke through to the King Martial Realm at a young age. This trip to the central continent is to make up for his regrets. Mu Sheng was even more shocked. He hadn't expected that Lin Yuanshan himself was so capable, but his own son was also so capable. All right, we should get going now, so as not to give the Cloud Sword sect time to react. And so, Elder Kuhai led more than 10 King Martial Realm experts from the Blood Sea sect straight to the Cloud Sword sect. The Izumo Sword sect was completely unaware of this and was still recruiting more martial artists. As Ye Tian emerged from the valley, he exuded a sharp aura, resembling a drawn sword from afar, its edge fully revealed. With a single step, Ye Tian appeared 10 feet away in the blink of an eye, like lightning. This speed is simply incredible. The only downside is that he doesn't have much Yuan energy left in his body right now. He shook his head, thinking he should be content. With the lightning step, he could at least roam freely within the true martial realm. Furthermore, if a spirit martial realm cultivator lands on the ground or is not far from them, they will have a chance to get close to the other party. The current lightning step can only ensure Ye Tian's movement on the ground. It cannot help him fly. To fly, one must break through the spirit martial realm and transform one's Yuan power into wings. On the way back, Ye Tian carefully practiced the lightning step technique, constantly familiarizing himself with it. You provided the masterpiece Asura War God by the master Lu Daozai, starting by devouring the Empress's essence and blood. 85. Happy birthday, girl. When Ye Tian returned to the Chuyun sword sect, he had already mastered the use of the lightning step. It's not like you'll go all out from the start and lose control of yourself. Now, he can separate a small portion of his elemental energy to perform the lightning step. With a single step, one can cover a distance of nearly 5 meters in the time it takes to breathe. In other words, by using lightning step within 5 meters, one can ensure that their Yuan power is sufficient and not depleted, while also maintaining great speed to fight the enemy. This is a huge step forward, and it's very important for Ye Tian. After returning to the outer sect and handing over the purple cherry grass, Ye Tian felt completely relaxed. I've finally finished all the tasks I owed, and now I have at least a month of free time. However, Ye Tian thought he should rush to the inner sect as soon as possible, otherwise, doing this mission would be a complete waste of time. As Ye Tian walked along the outer gate, all the outer disciples looked at him with awe. There was no other way. Ye Tian's reputation resounded throughout the outer sect, and no outer sect disciple could rival him. Even some inner disciples issued statements admitting their inferiority. Ye Tian didn't pay too much attention to it and headed straight for his residence, intending to cultivate properly for a while. When he returned to his residence, he found Yi Ling sitting on a chair in the lobby, waiting for him to come back. Girl, what brings you here? Looking at Yi Ling, Ye Tian showed a doting smile. Brother, have you forgotten something? Yi Ling jumped down, put her hands behind her back, and came to Ye Tian's side, her little face showing some displeasure. Ye Tian was taken aback and looked at the little girl with some confusion. Brother is so silly. Has he forgotten that it was my birthday the day before yesterday? As she spoke, Yi Ling pouted, her gaze towards Ye Tian filled with resentment. My older brother used to celebrate my birthday with me and prepare lots and lots of delicious food. Yi Ling said in a low voice. Ye Tian slapped the back of his head and smiled wryly. I'm sorry, it's my fault. I forgot about it while doing the mission. I'll make it up to you now. Upon hearing Ye Tian admit his mistake, Yi Ling immediately smiled. I want to eat osmanthus cake. Ye Tian couldn't understand why this girl liked osmanthus cake so much, as she kept talking about it. However, in order to make amends to his sister, he had no choice but to grant her wish. Okay, let's go down the mountain to buy it. But Ye Tian was soon stunned. The Chuyun sword sect was located deep in the mountains, and the nearest city was several hundred miles away. Going out to buy things now takes at least 2 days, making it difficult to make a round trip. After hesitating for a moment, Ye Tian looked at Yi Ling and said, Girl, could you remember to make the osmanthus cake another day? Humph, brother doesn't like Linger anymore, and Linger doesn't like brother either, you stinky brother. With that, Yi Ling angrily ran outside. As she jogged along, tears streamed down Yi Ling's face. Ye Tian watched Yi Ling leave and couldn't help but smile bitterly. Oh dear, what kind of situation is this? Although Ye Tian felt helpless, he wouldn't really abandon his sister and planned to give her a surprise. Yi Ling returned to Dan Feng, kicking pebbles with her small feet, her face full of displeasure. Not far away, Mu Wanqing watched Yi Ling's figure and couldn't help but feel extremely jealous. There's no way around it, this girl's talent is just too extraordinary. She actually managed to refine a first-grade pill in such a short time. Jealousy can drive people crazy, especially for a woman like Mu Wanqing, who may do irrational things out of the ordinary. Linger, what's wrong? Are you unhappy? Mu Wanqing walked over and said with a smile on her face. Yi Ling looked up at Mu Wanqing, sniffed, and said, "Go away, I don't like you." After saying that, he walked past Mu Wanqing and headed towards the alchemist hall not far away. Mu Wanqing stood there, stunned, her pretty face showing a mixture of emotions. Sometimes it looks ferocious, sometimes it sneers. It's quite eerie. You brat, you're really annoying. With that, Mu Wanqing left with a sense of resentment. Mu Wanqing wouldn't act recklessly without a good opportunity. Yi Ling returned to the alchemist's hall, went to Alchemist Meng's residence, and sat down angrily. Girl, what's wrong? Who made you angry? x33xs.com. Master Meng treated Yi Ling as his own junior, a relationship that went beyond that of master and disciple. It's not just because of Yi Ling's talent, but also because Yi Ling is very sensible. Who else could it be? That jerk of a brother actually forgot my birthday. I'm so angry. Master Meng was taken aback, then frowned and said, Girl, that's not right of you. Your brother has a lot on his shoulders. How can he have so much time to play with you all the time? Yi Ling pouted, muttering something unintelligible. Upon seeing this, Master Meng shook his head and said, You've grown up now. You can't keep causing trouble for your brother. You should focus on refining elixirs. As he spoke, he turned to look at the alchemy furnace in front of him. Since you have no talent for cultivation, then become a revered alchemy master. That way you can help your brother instead of thinking about having fun all day long. Yi Ling stomped her foot angrily and turned to leave. Master Meng knew that it would be difficult to explain to someone of Yi Ling's age, so he didn't pay much attention to it. At night, the sky is dotted with stars, twinkling and beautiful. Yi Ling leaned against the window, gazing at the stars, lost in thought. After a long while, Yi Ling sighed and was about to rest when she suddenly saw a figure. That was Ye Tian, but he looked very disheveled, his face covered in black and white patches, making him almost unrecognizable. However, joy could still be seen in his eyes. Little sister, come out quickly. Ye Tian looked at Yi Ling and waved. Yi Ling said, Oh, not really angry, but just a little uncomfortable. Besides, after a whole day, the anger has long since subsided. She still likes her brother. Once outside, seeing Ye Tian looking like a little kitten, Yi Ling couldn't help but chuckle. Brother, where did you go? You look like a little kitten, it's so funny. Ye Tian ignored him, casually wiped his face, and said happily, Come on, follow me. With that, he pulled Yi Ling and headed straight outside. Brother, where are we going? You'll see when you get there. Ye Tian didn't say much, he just kept heading outside. After passing through the alchemist's hall, the two arrived outside. In the square of Dan Feng, a circle of candles was placed. In the very center of the candle was a plate. Inside the plate, there is a round object that emits an enticing fragrance. As a foodie, that aroma is very familiar. Osmanthus cake. That's right, the plate contains osmanthus cake, which Ye Tian carefully made. When he was still living in the Yi family, Ye Tian had asked about how to make osmanthus cake, but he had never made it before. To make up for his sister's birthday this time, Ye Tian had to personally take charge and make osmanthus cake. Ye Tian, carrying Yi Ling, stepped over the candles and arrived in front of the osmanthus cake. Looking down, Yi Ling saw two small figures on the osmanthus cake. Although they didn't look very good, she could vaguely tell that one was big and the other was small. Other parts of the osmanthus cake also have the words, "Happy Birthday, little girl." You provided the masterpiece Asura War God, by the master Lu Daozai, starting by devouring the Empress's essence and blood. 86. The Lin family visits. Ye Tian went to great lengths to make up for Yi Ling's birthday. "Girl, do you like it?" Ye Tian looked at his younger sister. Yi Ling was deeply moved, and tears welled up in her eyes. Suddenly, Yi Ling hugged Ye Tian tightly and said happily, "Wow, brother, you're so great. All right, you're 11 years old now, almost an adult, and you're still hugging and cuddling." Ye Tian patted Yi Ling on the shoulder and scolded her with a smile. Yi Ling jumped down, squatted down and looked at the osmanthus cake below, especially lingering on the two little figures, one big and one small. "Brother, is this you and me?" "Yes, the older one is me, and the younger one is you." Ye Tian nodded. These two little figures were also made using osmanthus cake. Yi Ling carefully took them down, put the larger one away, and then handed the smaller one to Ye Tian Dao. "Here, brother, take it out and let me see it if you miss me." Ye Tian smiled and nodded, then put it away. Yi Ling solemnly put away the little figure representing Ye Tian before looking down at the osmanthus cake and happily said, "Yay, osmanthus cake. Delicious osmanthus cake." Then, Yi Ling began to enjoy her meal. Ye Tian watched all this with a smile, especially when he saw Yi Ling's happy smile. He revealed a relieved smile. For Yi Ling, this was the most unforgettable birthday in her life, one she would never forget. For Ye Tian, it was also an unforgettable experience. "Just think how much hardship I endured to make osmanthus cake. It was more exhausting than fighting a major battle. Fortunately, we succeeded in the end, which made up for the regret." In the alchemist's hall, an alchemist watched everything with a smile. These two siblings really have a deep bond. "Hee, if my brother were still alive, he would probably be arguing with me every day." One of the alchemists seemed to have thought of something, and tears streamed down his face. He was clearly a person with a story to tell. Mu Wanqing looked at the happy Yi Ling and Ye Tian standing beside her with a cold smile on her face. "Birthday. Humph, maybe it's the last birthday." With a soft whisper, Mu Wanqing turned and left. "Things aren't quite ready yet, but they'll be soon. That family should be arriving by now." "That's right." Mu Wanqing informed the Lin family about Ye Tian's progress and Yi Ling's talent, intending to use the Lin family's power to eliminate the two. As for Ye Tian's secret, she no longer cared. Outside the Azumo sword sect, two groups of people were gathering at this moment. "Haha. Elder Kuhai, I didn't expect you to be leading the team this time." Lin Yuanhe looked at the elder leading the Blood Sea sect and couldn't help but burst into laughter. "So it's brother Yuanhe. What brings you here?" Elder Kuhai looked at Lin Yuanhe and asked with some doubt. "I have received information that Yi Luo's two illegitimate children have made great progress, and the youngest child can even refine pills. Such a threat must be eliminated as soon as possible." "Alchemy." Elder Kuhai was taken aback, his expression filled with doubt. "Yes, according to sources, that little bastard successfully refined a first-grade pill in less than half a year. If given more time, wouldn't he be on track to refine a second-grade pill?" As Lin Yuanhe spoke, a cold glint appeared in his eyes. Yes, such talent should indeed be eradicated. Elder Kuhai nodded, agreeing with the other party's approach. "By the way, Elder Kuhai, is it you who came from the Blood Sea sect?" Lin Yuanhe looked around and realized that he was the only Emperor Martial Realm cultivator from the Blood Sea sect, while the others were all King Martial Realm cultivators. He couldn't help but frown and ask, "What? You look down on this elder?" Elder Kuhai was somewhat displeased. No, you're being disrespectful. How could I look down on you? It's just that Ing Cheong of the Chu Yun Sword Sect is a Grandmaster Martial Realm Cultivator. Elder Kuhai nodded. I know. You knew that, yet you still came? Lin Yuanhe was speechless. Don't worry, my goal is not to deal with Ing Cheong. As Elder Kuhai spoke, he looked at the distant Chu Yun Sword Sect and sneered. Who are they targeting? Lin Yuanhe asked with some doubt. All martial artists who enter or leave the Izumo Sword Sect must die. So that's how it is. Elder Kuhai's visit wasn't to Ing Cheong of the Chu Yun Sword Sect, but rather to the martial artists coming and going from the Chu Yun Sword Sect. Everyone that comes out, we kill. We kill until the Chu Yun Sword Sect dares not come out. Then, while waiting for the Blood Sea Sect to be ready, they directly pushed out of the Cloud Sword Sect. My arrival is to buy time for the Blood Sea Sect. Lin Yuanhe suddenly realized, and a smile appeared on his face. Oh, I see. I thought they were coming to get themselves killed. There were only a few of them. I'm entrusting Yi Luo's son to you. Are you confident? Elder Kuhai looked at Lin Yuanhe and asked. Lin Yuanhe thought for a moment and then spoke. How about the elder lends me 2 King Martial Realm experts? The Lin family members who came this time, besides him being a King Martial Realm expert, also included their steward Lin Yi, who was also a King Martial Realm expert. As for the others, they were all Spirit Martial Realm experts. Although I was confident, to avoid any unforeseen circumstances, I decided to borrow the help of 2 King Martial Realm experts to ensure everything went smoothly. Elder Kuhai nodded and pointed out 2 King Martial Realm experts from behind him, handing them over to Lin Yuanhe. Lin Yuanhe was extremely grateful, and then led his men into the Chu Yun Mountains. Third Elder, what should we do? Lin Yi walked over and asked Lin Yuanhe. As the Lin family's steward, Lin Yi held a very high position, and he could ask questions without any scruples about things that others dared not ask. There was no way around it. This guy enjoyed the Lin family's deep trust, and he was involved in everything, big and small. He made many contributions, which is why he was appointed as the head steward. Humph, that kid is close to his sister, so he arrested her first. Lin Yuanhe sneered, a cold light flashing within him. Lin Yi nodded and didn't ask any further questions. He believed that the other side had made all the preparations and that he only needed to follow orders. Lin Yi, tonight you take 2 Spirit Martial Realm experts to capture that girl, then bring her here. We'll make some arrangements first, and then give that little beast a big gift. Yes, Third Elder. Lin Yi nodded, and after nightfall, he led the 2 Spirit Martial Realm cultivators stealthily toward Dan Peak. Fortunately, it was only close to Dan Feng. If it were to infiltrate the Chu Yun Sword Sect, it would be really difficult. Because all the entrances to the Izumo Sword Sect are guarded by disciples, the sect will be notified of the slightest disturbance. In contrast, very few martial artists remained at Dan Feng. This gave Lin Yi the opportunity to infiltrate. Most importantly, Dan Feng had their inside man. If he still couldn't succeed, then he might as well die. Who is it? Upon reaching Dan Feng Peak, they were inevitably discovered. There's no way around it. No matter which direction you take to get to Dan Feng, you have to pass through the plaza. Greetings, sir. I am from the Mu family. Please contact my young lady if you have any business with me. Mu family. The guard was taken aback. Yes, it's Miss Mu Wanqing. Upon hearing Mu Wanqing's name, the 2 guards smiled. So it's you. Wait here. I'll go and inform them right away. Soon, one of the guards went to inform Mu Wanqing. Mu Wanqing hasn't slept much lately. She's been waiting for news. When he heard the guards say that there were members of the Mu family outside, his expression changed. They're here. A cold smile appeared on his lips as he opened the door. You provided the masterpiece Asura War God by the master Liu Deizai, starting by devouring the Empress's essence and blood. 87. It was a false alarm. Master Mu, someone from the Mu family is looking for you outside. The guards bowed, showing great respect to Mu Wanqing. Okay, I understand. Mu Wanqing nodded calmly, then closed the door and headed out of the alchemist's hall. Led by the guards, Mu Wanqing saw the forest. Mississippi. Lin Yi was very familiar with this approach. After all, he himself came from a servant background, so this approach came naturally to him. Mu Wanqing's eyes flickered slightly, and she nodded gently. Come with me. After Mu Wanqing finished speaking, she turned and headed towards the alchemist's hall. The guards did not stop her. If anything happened, Mu Wanqing would take responsibility. Upon entering the alchemist's hall, Mu Wanqing spoke coldly. Send 2 people to clean up. I don't want any trouble. Hee, please rest assured, Master Mu Dan, I understand. Lin Yi said with a smile, then pointed out 2 spirit martial realm experts and walked behind him. The other party was referring to the 2 guards. If they left any trace, they could follow the trail and influence Mu Wanqing. Seeing this, Mu Wanqing smiled slightly. That girl lives in the same room as Master Meng, and she should still be fast asleep right now. The thought of Yi Ling being about to be taken away filled Mu Wanqing with a strange sense of relief. www.x33xs.com. However, when Mu Wanqing led Lin Yi and the others into Yi Ling's residence, they did not see Yi Ling and their expressions changed. Where are they? Lin Yi frowned and looked at Mu Wanqing. Mu Wanqing herself was puzzled and very confused. That shouldn't be the case. That girl should be fast asleep by now, right? Master Mu Dan, please give us an explanation for this matter. Lin Yi looked at Mu Wanqing. Although she was an alchemist, he would not tolerate her if she really played a trick on the Lin family. Wait here, I'll go ask Master Meng. With that, Mu Wanqing gritted her teeth and headed towards Master Meng's residence next door. Mu Wanqing knocked on Master Meng's door and spoke anxiously. Master Meng, something terrible has happened. Yi Ling has disappeared. She looked very anxious, as if she was extremely worried about Yi Ling's safety. How is that possible? Master Meng's expression also changed. After saying that, Master Meng went directly to Yi Ling's residence next door. When he arrived at Yi Ling's residence, he indeed did not see Yi Ling. The entire room was neat and tidy. Notify all personnel in Danfeng to search for Yi Ling's whereabouts with all their might. Master Meng's face was ashen, and he was somewhat worried. Damn it, what on earth is going on? Soon, Danfeng was brightly lit as many alchemists searched for Yi Ling's whereabouts. But after searching everywhere, Yi Ling was nowhere to be found. Go and inform Ye Tian to see if he went to his place. Master Meng was not anxious, after all. There was still Ye Tian to search for. It's possible that Yi Ling might not return from Ye Tian's residence. Soon, a pill refiner headed towards the Cloud Sword sect to inform Ye Tian and also to confirm whether Yi Ling was at their residence. When Ye Tian heard that his sister was missing, he froze on the spot, his eyes bloodshot. His sister was his Achilles heel. He wouldn't allow anyone to touch her. Unexpectedly, someone has repeatedly caused trouble. In an instant, Ye Tian was filled with killing intent. The alchemist sensed the killing intent emanating from Ye Tian, and his expression changed, causing him to retreat repeatedly. He was only at the true martial realm, yet he felt an endless killing intent beneath Ye Tian. Ye Tian paid no attention to the other party, his killing intent growing stronger. He himself realized that something was wrong with him and kept reminding himself of it. Calm down, calm down, calm down. The first thing to do is to find out where my sister is. Ye Tian closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, his gaze had become calm. Just as they were about to set off, a voice came from behind them. Kid, you've gotten stronger. Ye Tian was startled and suddenly looked up. Outside his dormitory, a crow with its eyes closed was watching him. Dead crow, it's you. In an instant, Ye Tian recognized the other party. Get lost, I don't have time for you right now. Ye Tian frowned. Now is not the time to play with the other person. Finding my sister's whereabouts is the priority. Just then, a small head popped out from behind the crow. Brother, you're still awake? Linger. Ye Tian's eyes widened in surprise. Ye Tian strode over and grabbed Yi Ling, scolding her. Where have you run off to again, making everyone worry? At the same time, Ye Tian breathed a sigh of relief. Thankfully, his younger sister was all right. Otherwise, he would have been worried sick. Kid, now is not the time to talk about these things. The crow with its eyes closed interrupted Ye Tian's reprimand. What's the meaning? Ye Tian was extremely puzzled. Are you aware that someone is trying to use the maid to get back at you? Ye Tian was stunned, somewhat incredulous, and finally filled with anger. Dealing with me is one thing, I'm not afraid of how many come, but if they try to harm my sister, that's unforgivable. Who? Ye Tian's killing intent erupted. I don't know who the other party is. There is a group of people inside the Azuma Mountains right now, and another group outside the Azuma Mountains. This was very important news, and even Ye Tian sensed that something was wrong. You stay here, I'm going to find Elder Qian. This is a major event and cannot be ignored. Elder Qian is currently stationed in the outer sect, serving as an elder there, and also concurrently as an inner sect elder, keeping him very busy. There was no other way. The Azuma sword sect had lost so many elders, and now it was completely empty. The recruited experts are not yet trusted or given important positions. They can only be handed over to Elder Qian. Ying Qiong, on the other hand, was in charge of the core disciples and the recruited martial artists. When Elder Qian received the news, his expression changed. Are you sure? Ye Tian nodded. That dead crow wouldn't make a fuss without reason, so Ye Tian chose to believe it. Come, follow me to see the sect leader. Just as Ye Tian had thought, this was a major event. If not handled carefully, the Chuyun sword sect could be doomed. When Ying Qiong received the news, his face darkened. It seems that Blood Sea sect has finally made a move. It's not hard to guess that those martial artists outside are from the Blood Sea sect. Throughout the southern region, apart from the Blood Sea sect, other sects might attack the Cloud Sword sect, but they would also be wary of them. Because of his presence, he would also make the other party wary. In the entire southern region, only the Cloud Sword sect and the Blood Sea sect possess the Grandmaster martial realm. As for other sects, they do not have it openly. Whether it happens secretly or not, we don't know. Furthermore, the Blood Sea sect and the Cloud Sword sect have a feud, and the latter is ambitious and has always wanted to become the ruler of the southern region. Once the Azuma sword sect is destroyed, there will be no rivals in the entire southern region, at least not on the surface. Therefore, the Blood Sea sect is the most likely suspect. Wait here, I'll go investigate. After Ying Qiong finished speaking, he personally went to investigate the authenticity of the information. As a Grandmaster Martial Realm cultivator, Ying Qiong has a good chance of not being discovered if he is careful. And so, Ying Qiong arrived in the Chuyun Mountains. Ying Qiong looked into the distance, where a group of people were stationed, well hidden. There really is something fishy going on. You provided the masterpiece Asura War God, by the Master Lu Deizai, starting by devouring the Empress's essence and blood. 88. You're already weird enough. There really is something fishy going on. Ying Qiong muttered, his eyes flashing with a cold light. Ying Qiong shows no mercy to the enemies of the Azuma sword sect. However, he didn't act recklessly. It was said that there was another group of men outside, and he didn't want to alert them. Just as Ying Qiong was passing by, a sound came from there. Third Elder, why hasn't Lin Yi arrived yet? What's the panic? That's Dan Feng. We can't do anything reckless there. Ying Qiong's gaze shifted slightly. Judging from their appearance, these guys didn't seem to have come from Yunjian's sect. It seemed they came because of Dan Feng. By the dim light, Ying Qiong saw a stranger who also seemed somewhat familiar. The reason they feel familiar is because the other person's face is very similar to someone you know well. As for feeling unfamiliar, it's because the other person isn't him. The Lin family? Ing Qiong frowned. He knew the three Lin brothers, who were also enemies of the Chuyun sword sect. In a flash, Ing Qiong thought of something. It seems the Lin family has come knocking on our door. It's not hard to imagine that these guys came for Ye Tian and his sister. 3 King Martial Realm experts and more than 10 Spirit Martial Realm experts. That's quite a force. With a murmur, Ing Qiong slowly retreated, heading towards the edge of the Chuyun Mountains. Upon arriving outside the Chuyun Mountains, Ing Qiong saw a group of martial artists openly blocking his way. An elderly man sitting cross-legged on the ground made Ing Qiong's eyes flash with cold light. Ku Hai, I never imagined it really was your Blood Sea sect. In an instant, Ing Qiong could no longer suppress his killing intent. Stepping out, Ing Qiong spoke. Ku Hai, what brings you from your Blood Sea sect to my Cloud Sword sect? Elder Ku Hai, who was meditating, was startled and turned his head sharply to look. Ing Qiong. It was clear that Ku Hai was very shocked. He hadn't expected the Cloud Sword sect to discover it so quickly, especially since Ing Qiong himself had come. Keep in mind, they've only been here for less than a day, and they haven't seen any warriors from the Izumo sword sect yet, so the news couldn't have leaked out. What he didn't know was that the warriors of the Izumo sword sect were unaware, but a crow had sensed their every move. Oh no, Ing Qiong has made a move. I'm no match for him. I'd better get out of here. After thinking it over, Elder Ku Hai gave a soft shout. Withdraw. After saying that, he simply chose to leave. Humph, since you're here, you might as well not leave. Ing Qiong wouldn't give them a chance to leave. A sword appeared in his hand, and he slashed out with it. The overwhelming sword energy swept across the area, and the Blood Sea sect's King Martial Realm cultivator was unable to withstand it, being instantly killed by a single sword strike. Only Elder Ku Hai, with his extremely fast speed and the powerful flapping of his wings, managed to escape unscathed. However, Ing Qiong did not stop. He stepped into the void and chased after them. Ing Qiong, if you dare to touch me, the Blood Sea sect will not let you get away with it. Facing Ku Hai's threat, Ing Qiong sneered. www.x33xs.com. My Chuyun sword sect and your Blood Sea sect have a deep-seated hatred. I will kill anyone I see, without exception. There was still one thing I wanted to say. That is when the Izumo sword sect is weak, and I must buy myself some time. If the sect weren't so weak, and Elder Qian wasn't overwhelmed by the sheer number of people, Ing Qiong would have drawn his sword and blocked the gate, not giving the Blood Sea sect a chance to make a move. Faced with Ing Qiong's pursuit, Elder Ku Hai had no choice but to flee for his life. Fortunately, he was at the Emperor Martial Realm, and his internal Yuan power was still quite strong, which could sustain his consumption. Otherwise, Ing Qiong would have caught up with him and killed him long ago. But it won't be long. The distance between Ing Qiong and him is constantly closing, and he will catch up in a while. On the other side, Ye Tian followed Elder Qian and the newly recruited Royal Martial Realm experts from the Chuyun sword sect straight to the outside of the Chuyun Mountains. As luck would have it, just as Ye Tian and his group were on their way, they ran into Lin Yi. When enemies meet, their eyes are filled with hatred. Ye Tian perfectly embodied this saying at this moment. Without saying a word, Ye Tian shouted loudly. Lin Yi, I never expected it was your Lin family who were behind this. Die. Before Elder Qian could react, Ye Tian sped off into the forest. Lin Yi also noticed Ye Tian, and his expression changed. It wasn't because of Ye Tian, but because of Elder Qian and the others behind Ye Tian. You little bastard, you're really lucky. Looking at Ye Tian, Lin Ye's eyes flashed with a cold light. Humph, if it weren't for you, I, Ye Tian, wouldn't be where I am today. In fact, I should thank you. Ye Tian arrived at a spot not far from the forest, less than 10 meters apart from the other side. Ye Tian slowly stepped forward, ready to strike. Lin Yi, to express my gratitude to you, I have decided to kill you. Ha ha. Lin Yi laughed loudly and said sarcastically, Rely on you. Before Ye Tian could say anything more, Lin Yi continued. Without the people behind you, you're nothing but a fart. No sooner had he finished speaking than Ye Tian appeared like lightning, heading straight for him. Even Elder Chen was surprised by such speed. Soul severing. Ye Tian's loud shout rang out in the arena. Ye Tian slashed straight at Lin Yi with his sword, his conviction incredibly strong, and his killing intent permeating all directions. Lin Yi was taken aback, but he didn't take Ye Tian's attack seriously. With a sinister grin, Lin Yi slapped Ye Tian with his palm. Humph! You underestimate me. I'll make you pay the price. Ye Tian felt a mix of excitement and anticipation. In the blink of an eye, Ye Tian arrived in front of Lin Yi with a sword. The soul-slaying strike was incredibly powerful, carrying immense conviction. It pierced through Lin Yi's palm and headed straight for his head. How is that possible? Lin Yi couldn't believe it, his eyes filled with bloodshot. That was his own blood, dripping continuously from between his eyebrows. Ye Tian stopped and gasped for breath. This time, he unleashed the soul-severing technique with all his might, holding nothing back. Furthermore, Lin Yi underestimated him, which allowed Ye Tian to kill him in one fell swoop. Hiss! Gasps of surprise filled the arena. No one had expected Ye Tian to possess such strength. He is only at the true martial realm, yet he can kill someone at the king martial realm. Although all of this was due to the other side underestimating their opponent, the gap between the two sides was real. That's really perverted. Even Elder Chen spoke up helplessly. The Lin family's martial artists stood there dumbfounded, not yet able to react. Ye Tian took a deep breath and swallowed a yuanli pill. Instantly, Ye Tian's yuan power became abundant. He raised his head, his eyes flashing with murderous intent as he looked at the spirit martial realm expert from the Lin family. You all should die too. After saying that, he unleashed the soul-slaying sword once more, heading straight for a spirit martial realm cultivator from the Lin family. Faced with the powerful Ye Tian, the Lin family's spirit martial realm cultivators dared not resist and turned to run away. Moreover, it sprouted wings of elemental energy from its back, soared into the sky, and fled for its life. The other martial artists did the same upon seeing this. Ye Tian stood in the middle of the field, feeling utterly frustrated. Although he was confident he could kill the enemy, they wouldn't give him the chance. Seeing Ye Tian's stunned expression, Elder Chen patted him on the shoulder and said, "It's okay, you're already weird enough." That's true. Which true martial realm cultivator could kill a king martial realm cultivator like Ye Tian? Moreover, it was a one-hit kill, giving the opponent no chance to retaliate. Sigh, my cultivation level is still too low. If he were at the spirit martial realm, all of these guys from the Lin family would be dead. No rush, cultivation improvement takes time. You provided the masterpiece Asura War God, by the master Lu Daozai, starting by devouring the Empress's essence and blood. 89. Know yourself. No rush, cultivation improvement takes time. That was all Elder Chen could say to comfort him. Ye Tian nodded, then looked at Elder Chen and said, "Elder, let's continue to look ahead and see if there are any more members of the Lin family." Ye Tian harbored deep hatred for the Lin family. Not only did they cripple him, but they also tried to wipe out the entire Ye family. Moreover, when he first entered the capital, they tried to kill him and capture his sister. He would never forget this grudge. Regardless of whether it's for his own sake or for his sister's, he must eliminate the Lin family, this threat. That way, his younger sister would be safe. After Ye Tian finished speaking, he took the lead and headed straight ahead. Ye Tian, be careful. Elder Chen was somewhat worried and shouted. Ye Tian seemed not to hear him and strode forward anxiously. Now that the Lin family has come to us, we can't let them leave. Moreover, the existence of the Azumo sword sect behind him is his greatest advantage. He even hoped that Lin Yuanshan would be present in person, so that any future troubles could be eliminated. Filled with anticipation, Ye Tian saw a group of people ahead. The middle-aged man leading the group immediately made Ye Tian's eyes turn red. Lin Yuanhe. Looking at his opponent, Ye Tian's killing intent grew even stronger. This is the guy who came to my door with his men when I first entered the capital. Lin Yuanhe was preparing to retreat when he sensed the movement and suddenly turned his head. When he saw Ye Tian, his eyes flashed with a cold light. You little bastard, I never expected you to improve so much. He already knew that Ye Tian had killed Lin Yi. This terrified him. Was this really the case? In less than half a year, this little beast has already managed to kill a king martial realm expert. If he were given a little more time, wouldn't he be able to kill his second brother? For the first time, Lin Yuanhe felt threatened by a junior. Lin Yuanhe, it was you who ordered your men to arrest my sister. Looking at Lin Yuanhe, Ye Tian recalled what the crow had said earlier, and his anger surged. Looking back now, I still feel a bit scared. If it weren't for that dead crow, my sister would have been caught, and you can imagine what would have happened to her. I only regret that I couldn't catch him, otherwise I would have killed him. Lin Yuanhe continued to provoke Ye Tian, grinning maliciously as he spoke. Ah! Ye Tian roared. Court death. As he spoke, he charged directly at Lin Yuanhe. When Lin Yuanhe saw Ye Tian coming, he couldn't help but sneer. You little beast, do you really think I'm a piece of trash like Lin Yi? He had already sensed that Ye Tian was only at the early stage of the true martial realm. Although he didn't know how this guy killed Lin Yi, he didn't believe that the other party was really that powerful. A sea of blood surges to the heavens. The Lin family's martial arts techniques all originated from the Blood Sea sect. This is also thanks to Lin Yuanshan. Otherwise, the Lin family would never have possessed such powerful martial arts techniques. In an instant, Ye Tian felt himself in a sea of blood, with figures appearing all around him, all of them Lin Yuanhe, attacking him. Ye Tian calmed down and his expression became serious. You little beast, die. Lin Yuanhe's blood clone arrived and struck Ye Tian with a palm. Even as a blood clone, its strength is no weaker than that of an ordinary king martial realm cultivator. Without hesitation, Ye Tian thrust out his sword. The next moment, Ye Tian was sent flying backward, spitting out a mouthful of blood. That's amazing. Even though they were enemies, Ye Tian couldn't help but admire them. Where are you looking? Just then, Lin Yuanhe's blood clone appeared behind him and punched Ye Tian's head again. This is the power of the Blood Sea overwhelming heaven, which continuously creates blood clones to kill enemies. Sensing the threat behind him, Ye Tian's expression changed drastically. He rolled on the spot, barely managing to dodge the fatal blow. You little beast, it seems you used up all your trump cards to kill Lin Yi. Lin Yuanhe has now realized what's happening. The opponent was able to kill Lin Yi before, so they must have used their trump card. Now that the other side has no more trump cards, they no longer have that kind of strength. It seems I overestimated him. In the end, this guy is just a true martial realm cultivator, nothing that extraordinary. Just then, Elder Chen and the others noticed that Ye Tian was surrounded, and their expressions changed. Ye Tian. Elder Chen did not hesitate and immediately took action to rescue them. When Lin Yuanhe saw Elder Chen, his pupils shrank. He had heard of Elder Chen and knew that the other party was a royal martial realm expert. Even if he had the Blood Sea overwhelming heaven, which was comparable to the Earth rank, he would be no match for him. Withdraw. With wings of elemental energy appearing behind him, Lin Yuanhe fled without a word. They didn't even care about the sea of blood, lest Elder Chen catch up with them. The other spirit martial realm cultivators in the Lin family were also in the same boat, constantly fleeing. Go, we can't let them leave. Elder Chen shouted. The newly recruited experts from the Azumo sword sect made their move, chasing after Lin Yuanhe's retreating figure. Elder Chen then cleaved through the sea of blood with a single sword strike, rescuing Ye Tian. How are you? Seeing Ye Tian looking somewhat disheveled, Elder Chen breathed a sigh of relief. Ye Tian shook his head, looking somewhat dejected. Ye Tian had been somewhat complacent about his rapid improvement in strength, but this battle was like a bucket of cold water being poured over him, bringing him back to his senses. It seems I am not a strong person yet, but only a mere true martial realm cultivator. Having come to terms with himself, Ye Tian became exceptionally calm. Thank you, Elder Chen, I'm fine. Shaking his head, Ye Tian looked at Elder Chen gratefully. Elder Chen opened his mouth, unsure how to comfort him, and could only sigh in the end. Come, let's go out and have a look. With that, they headed out of the Izumo Mountains. Upon arriving outside the Izumo Mountains, some corpses could be seen lying on the ground, but Ing Cheong was nowhere to be seen. Elder Chen examined it for a while and sighed. So it really is the Blood Sea sect. Ye Tian stared at the corpses on the ground and fell silent. Elder, why has the Blood Sea sect been targeting the Cloud Sword sect all along? This was a question that Ye Tian had always been puzzled by. This story begins at the very beginning of the establishment of the Izumo Sword sect. Elder Chen began to tell Ye Tian about the grudges between the Cloud Sword sect and the Blood Sea sect. It turns out that when the Izumo Sword sect was first established, the Blood Sea sect intervened to prevent its establishment. The founder of that generation was also a domineering figure. He directly drew his sword and stormed into the Blood Sea sect, killing many martial artists. It can be said that the establishment of the Izumo Sword sect was built on the corpses of the Blood Sea sect. After this incident, the Blood Sea sect kept a low profile and secretly targeted the Cloud Sword sect. It wasn't until later, when Ye Tian's father, Yi Luo, and Lin Yuanshan's affair occurred, coupled with the Blood Sea sect stealing most of the Chuyun Sword sect's inheritance, that the Chuyun Sword sect fell into decline. On the other hand, the Blood Sea sect is growing stronger day by day, and it seems to be on the verge of becoming the overlord of the southern region. The enmity between the Blood Sea sect and the Cloud Sword sect is now irreconcilable, and a decisive battle is inevitable in the future. After learning what had happened, Ye Tian couldn't help but sigh. It's really hard to say who's right and who's wrong in this matter. We can only say that both sides are at fault. Besides, there's no point in talking about this now. Let's look to the future. You provided the masterpiece Asura War God, by the master Liu Daozai, starting by devouring the Empress's essence and blood. 90. Leaving. Go check it out, these guys should have some good stuff on them. Elder Chen smiled and looked at Ye Tian. Ye Tian was taken aback, then began searching the body without further ado. And you know what? He actually found quite a few good things, including Yuanli pills, silver, and martial arts techniques. Elder, there is a sword technique here, but its level is a bit low, only the middle level of the yellow rank. Keep it. We'll put it outside the gate later. Elder Chen nodded, a slight joy in his heart. The Izumo Sword sect is currently lacking in inheritance, so even a yellow rank martial skill is a pleasant surprise. Ye Tian thought about it and wondered if he should do something. My storage ring seems to contain some scrolls, including powerful sword techniques. Besides, I am now a disciple of the Izumo Sword sect. In the future, barring any unforeseen circumstances, we will share both glory and ruin with the Izumo Sword sect. Now that the Izumo Sword sect has become powerful, I have a powerful backer. No rush. We can take a good look when we get back. If possible, we might as well take it out and offer it to the Yun Sword sect. As time passed, Ing Cheong arrived carrying Elder Ku Hai's corpse. Metropolitan. Upon seeing this, Elder Chen hurriedly stepped forward. Ing Cheong nodded, but her expression was still somewhat unpleasant. This is the Dry Sea. Elder Chen must know Ku Hai and be aware that there is such a person in the Blood Sea sect. This guy was the leader this time, and I killed him. As Ing Cheong spoke, he threw Ku Hai's body onto the ground. Bury it. After Ing Cheong finished speaking, he headed towards the Chuyun Sword sect. Elder, leave them to me. You can go back now. Ye Tian's eyes flickered, indicating that he had his own plans. Seeing that Ye Tian had taken the initiative to make the suggestion, Elder Chen did not object, but only gave some instructions. Be careful. After saying that, he headed towards the Izumo Sword sect. Ye Tian put all the corpses together, preparing to devour them. Just then, the woman in red appeared in the scene. Staying here all the time will slow down your progress. Haven't you thought about going out and seeing the world? Ye Tian was taken aback and turned to look at the woman in red. Frowning, Ye Tian lowered his head and said softly, "What will happen to my sister if I leave?" Ultimately, he still couldn't bear to part with his younger sister. If a martial artist wants to improve faster, the only way is to experience the greatest terror between life and death. Ye Tian himself also sensed it. When he was still in the Ye family, his ability to quickly enter the gathering Yuan realm was inseparable from the intense battles he fought. He was just worried about his younger sister and didn't dare to go out and explore. After the woman in red finished speaking, she said no more. "You can think about it yourself." After saying that, he disappeared. "From now on, when you devour essence, blood and bloodline, give me 50%. Ye Tian stood there, stunned. If one's own bloodline advancement is already difficult, wouldn't it be even more difficult if half of it were given to the other party? However, there was nothing that could be done about it. He had already promised the other party, and without their help, he could not have made such rapid progress. Shaking his head, Ye Tian began to devour the bloodline and essence. When it entered his body, the drop of black blood glowed and emitted a powerful suction force. Half of the bloodline and essence were naturally absorbed, strengthening this drop of essence. After Ye Tian finished devouring them, he found a pit and buried all the corpses. Standing at the edge of the deep pit, Ye Tian fell into deep thought. He was considering whether he should go out and make his own way in the world. After a long while, a sigh was heard, and Ye Tian turned and headed towards the Cloud Sword sect. For the next 2 weeks, Ye Tian did not cultivate, but instead stayed with Yi Ling. As for his heart, he had already made up his mind. "Little sister, your brother is leaving." Looking at Yi Ling, who was carefree and smiling, Ye Tian finally spoke the words that had been weighing on his heart for a long time. "Where to?" Yi Ling was startled, her joy immediately turning to sorrow, her large eyes filled with tears. "My brother wants to go out and have a look around." Ye Tian was reluctant, but he had no choice but to make the decision. "Oh." Yi Ling lowered her head and fell silent. She's already 11 years old and understands a lot. She knew her brother wanted to become stronger, and she knew her brother carried a heavy burden. After a long while, Yi Ling looked up at Ye Tian and said stubbornly, "Brother, go ahead, I'll wait for you here." The words had barely left her lips when tears finally streamed down her face. "Younger sister." Ye Tian hugged Yi Ling tightly, his eyes red-rimmed. "Brother, don't worry, I'm all grown up now and can take care of myself. I also have crows to play with, so I won't be lonely." Thinking of that dead crow, Ye Tian felt somewhat grateful. If it weren't for the other party, who knows what would have happened. After comforting Yi Ling, Ye Tian left. Before leaving, he went to the sect leader's main hall. "If you want to venture out on your own, you should at least inform the sect. Have you made up your mind?" Looking at Ye Tian, Ying Qiong fell silent. "It's a good thing that the other person wants to go out and make their own way in the world, but I also have some worries. After all, there are powerful enemies outside, such as the Blood Sea sect and the Lin family. Once they discover Ye Tian, they might take action. Sect Master, these are the sword techniques and cultivation methods I obtained. I hope they will be useful to the sect." Ye Tian handed over the cultivation techniques and sword skills stored in his storage ring. Most of them are Shen rank, with only 1 D rank cultivation technique and 1 low-grade D rank sword technique. Ye Tian examined the sword techniques and realized they weren't suitable for him. Besides, he already possessed the Soul Slayer sword, and he understood the principle of not trying to do too much at once. Besides, I can cultivate whenever I want. Because he had a spare, he planned to send another one to the Yi family. Of course, Ying Qiong's consent must be obtained before sending it. Ying Qiong did not refuse. After Ye Tian finished preparing, he bid farewell to Chen Fei, took one last look at his sister, and walked down from the Chuyun sword sect. Looking back, Ye Tian murmured to himself, "Little sister, wait for me." After speaking, Ye Tian resolutely strode forward, heading straight out of the Cloud Mountain range. X33XS.com. Only a few people in the Chuyun sword sect knew about Ye Tian's departure. It was not spread outside the sect. After all, the other party's identity is sensitive, and if the information is leaked, there might be trouble. After a month of travel, Ye Tian finally returned to the place where he had lived for 16 years. The Yi family is now the most powerful family in Jincheng, while the Lu family has become history, having been destroyed by the combined forces of the Yi and Wang families. Furthermore, the Wang and Yi families formed a life-or-death alliance, helping and supporting each other, which even the city lord dared not ignore. Ye Tian's return was not a grand affair. Instead, he secretly met with his aunt and uncle, Yi Hua. As for the others, they knew nothing at all. The reason is the same: to prevent the news from leaking and causing trouble. Tiana, where is Linga? Yi Shuang didn't see Yi Ling and asked with some concern. Linga is already a first-grade alchemist and is learning alchemy at Danfeng. She is doing very well. Upon hearing that Yi Ling had become an alchemist, Yi Shuang was overjoyed. Even Yi Hua was extremely excited. "Aunt, uncle, I came back this time just to see you. I'll be leaving soon." "What happened?" Yi Shuang asked in confusion. "No, it's just that I came back secretly this time, without letting the news leak out. You provided the masterpiece Asura War God, by the master Lu Deizai, starting by devouring the Empress's essence and blood.